Today on the podcast, I want to talk about a major new advancement in AI coming out of Spotify. This is a very cool capability of AI that people have been talking about for a while, but I haven't seen a lot of actual applications. And of course, talk is cheap and applications is difficult. So I'm really impressed. But essentially what Spotify has announced is that they will be translating podcasts like the AI Chat podcast that you're listening to today into other languages using AI. This is a phenomenal use case. I'm super excited about this. There's a lot of kind of hard AI issues to grapple with here. This is going to be amazing. What I would love for this to look like is for eventually, right, anyone from anywhere in the world could listen to this podcast. They could listen to it in my voice, but in a different language. Very, very cool. We're going to be diving into the capabilities and what Spotify actually plans to roll out here. Of course, there's lots of amazing things that people have talked about that are capable, but what Spotify actually rolls out may not be exactly that. So let's dive into what we're going to see here. Welcome to the world's #1 AI podcast, AI Chat. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Make sure that you go to aibox.ai, link in the show notes, to join the waitlist for our new AI platform. We're going to be launching an incredible platform that allows you to build anything you want with workflows in AI. So you're able to chain together ChatGPT and image generators and audio generators to make really powerful apps for your organization, or you can host them on our marketplace and actually generate royalties from them. So make sure to go to aibox.ai and join the waitlist. In addition, if you like the podcast, if you could do me a massive favor and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps me be able to get better guests on here as they check the reviews to see how you guys are liking it. So if you could please do that, I would really, really appreciate it. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today. Spotify, the popular music streaming giant, announced a game-changing move on Monday. It's diving headlong into AI to translate podcasts into other languages. So this revolutionary feature comes as part of a new alliance with OpenAI, which is, of course, the most famous company in the AI field. And the partnership puts Spotify at the cutting edge of an industry-wide trend to essentially leverage generative AI technology for enhancing user experiences. So let's talk a little bit about translating voice and style, how this is going to work. So I think in a fairly significant step forward, Spotify has launched a pilot for what it's calling, quote, voice translation feature aimed at providing multilingual translation that doesn't just convert words, but also mimics the original speaker's voice and style. So it's kind of interesting. I actually speak French. I know a lot of people don't know this. I lived in France for a couple years. I'm from Canada originally, did not learn French in Canada, so I do not have a French-Canadian accent. Mais je peux parler un petit peu de français. C'est pas terrible, mais voilà. In any case, what I was thinking recently of doing is I'm like, dang, just to reach more of an audience, it'd be really cool if I could just, sit there and do a French version of this podcast. And I was like, man, it's a lot of work to do that because, it would just be a lot of work. It's twice as much work. I don't know how big the audience in France is compared to English, which I have a ton of different countries that speak that. And so I ended up not doing it. However, I definitely saw the appeal, and I think this is what Spotify is doing here. They're not just going to translate my voice, for example, into other languages, and just using the same words. It would literally be my same voice. This is really, really cool AI technology. I've seen this demoed a couple other places, and it seems that, Spotify is jumping headfirst into it. So this really innovative capability emerges from OpenAI's release of a new voice and new voice and image capabilities for its AI chatbot. Of course, ChatGPT. Users are going to be able to interact with ChatGPT in far more lifelike manners thanks to the generation of human-like audio from just text and a few seconds of sample speech. This is something that ChatGPT has recently announced they will be doing. There's some really cool use cases they have here. But it's really cool to me to see that Spotify is going to partner with them and really pull this off in a big way. So I think the underpinning technology of this feature is OpenAI's voice transcription tool, which is Whisper. Of course, this has been announced for a while. Not a lot of people talk about it or know a lot of its capabilities. but it's known for its ability to essentially transcribe English speech and translate other languages into English. Whisper really is kind of the cornerstone which Spotify's voice translation feature is being built. The pilot will initially make 3 podcast episodes available in Spanish, including Lex Friedman's podcast, Armchair Expert, and The Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. So both subscribed and unsubscribed users can access those episodes. French and German translations are also going to be coming in, I guess, the coming days and weeks, Spotify said, but I think first they'll kick it off in Spanish. This is so cool. I'll be curious to see when the rollout is, when they, if they charge for this, what the broader rollout looks like. I mean, personally, I'd be willing to, pay for something like this if I could see, I could double or triple or even 10x my audience being able to translate it to all the languages in the world. So very, very interesting. I think as these AI-driven features become kind of ubiquitous, ethical and privacy considerations take on a kind of a heightened significance. The OpenAI team has kind of explicitly noted that with these new functionalities, there are some different risks. They said, quote, the potential for malicious actors to impersonate public figures or commit fraud is definitely one of them. I think given that the voice translation feature is going to mimic the speaker's voice and style, the potential for misuse is certainly a factor that is interesting. But like the other thing is, if you know like a voice like Joe Rogan or someone, like he only speaks English, and so if all of a sudden you see like Joe Rogan speaking Spanish telling you to invest in some shady crypto, like I would just hope that people have enough sense to say this person does not speak that language. Obviously this is AI generated. So I mean, yeah, they're saying that people can like use this for bad, but of course like this technology isn't completely new. This has been around for a little bit. There's different companies that have done versions of this technology, deep fakes and cloning people's voices and whatnot. So I mean, definitely if they make a kind of a broader market that is now using it because it's more famously found on OpenAI, I understand that, but at the same time, it's not like they're inventing something that has these new risks we never had before. They are there, and I'm not saying they're not risks, but take that with a grain of salt. I think beyond some of the ethical considerations, Spotify's move also has important implications for its standing in a really intensely competitive streaming market. So while Apple Podcasts and Amazon's Music are definitely significant players, neither has announced anything as radical as translating podcasts while preserving the original speaker's voice and style, right? So for Spotify, I think the ability to really differentiate itself is such a unique and compelling way to prove to be a significant strategic advantage. Now, I will admit for everyone listening that I think I have 70% of my listeners are listening on Apple Podcasts. So that's where a majority of my listeners come from. If you're listening, that's probably where you're coming from. And I think it's only like 8 to 10% that actually listen on Spotify. However, Spotify does have some really unique features. For example, not this episode, but a lot of episodes, all interviews, I'll record video of the interview, and you can actually watch the video of the interview on Spotify, which is a really cool feature. You can't do that on Apple, and I wonder if Apple will roll this out, because I know Apple recently just rolled out, I believe, like the custom thumbnails for every episode. There's like this big email they sent me about how innovative it was. And, Spotify's been doing that for a couple years now. So there's just a few different things. I would hope Apple jumps on the video bandwagon. That would be really cool. If they do this kind of AI translation thing, I think that would be really cool. It'll be very interesting to see if Spotify is able to take some market share by being aggressive with some of these new features that Apple is not looking at. I think, with all eyes right now on Spotify's pilot phase, the real test is going to be how effectively the new feature can actually meet the expectations of global audience. Of course, it sounds really cool, but conceptually, but will they be able to actually pull this off is a real question. Will it help break down language barriers, or, is it going to sound cheesy or bad? There's all sorts of questions we have. Either way, I think the partnership between Spotify and OpenAI represent a really ambitious leap into this AI space. I think, as Spotify and OpenAI's collaboration kind of unfolds, it provides us not just with a new kind of way to experience content, but also a case study on how innovation can be rolled out in these larger companies. I think it's an exciting time to be a consumer, a technologist, or just an observer of kind of this really rapidly evolving digital landscape. And who knows, maybe next time you're listening to this, you'll be listening to it in Spanish or French or German or wherever else you come from. So definitely a very cool prospect that I'm very excited for with this topic.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. That's the sound of switching your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling. Harness the best converting checkout and same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Stop leaving sales on the table. Discover why millions trust Shopify to build, grow, and run their business. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech23.
Thank you for listening to the AI Chat Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it if you rate me wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're looking for an innovative group of AI enthusiasts, make sure you check out our Discord channel and also our Facebook community. It's obviously a lot more interactive than a podcast where we can actually share software tools, prompts that we're using in everyday AI. I'll leave a link for those in the description below.